Hesbon, I want to get your view on the same, but also I think a lot of questions that Kenyans were asking at that point when the results were released was how practical is it for a school to actually manage to get 100 A's?
Well, let me speak as a teacher. When you're teaching a class, because the national exam is just, more or less the same as just other evaluations that we have in school, and you release grades. There is something called grade moderation at the university level. Mm-hmm. And what happens is very simple. You can have an abnormal curve. It could be all students, mm-hmm. have average grades, stellar grades, or there is a dismal performance. And what normally happens is this an interrogation of how did we arrive at these grades. And if how we arrive at grades, if it is my class and all students have A minuses and A planes, and there's a due process. They did the continuous assessment, they did the coursework, they wrote their term papers, they did the final exams and the projects, and there is clear indication that the A's that they have is a reflection of their competence and the level of engagement they had in class, and they've acquired skills and knowledge. No one can question that. So the issue here is not that more Kenyans got A's at KCSE level, or schools all of a sudden are making the grades out of nowhere. The issue here is what is underneath all this. And I agree with this much, that we may want to interrogate and find out what changed in some of these schools, But it still raises the question of, in 1 year, is that transformative change, enough to move a school from a mean of 6 point something to a mean of 10, And those are the critical questions that have to be asked. We cannot be a country where when our kids fail, we complain. When they pass, we complain. You see? And if that happens, it simply means that it is a system that has a problem. And one of the key reasons why we need to celebrate the likes of Professor Mago and Matiang'i is that they were very firm. They understood the country that we operated in. They knew that we have a system that is fairly shaky. And therefore, you have to be very resolute in anything that you want to achieve. Mm-hmm. And I want to believe that they had laid the foundation for building a good system. So in case of what we have in these examinations, what I would say is very simple. That as a country, it's encouraging that we are seeing some progress in terms of performance. But the fact that we doubt those performance, the fact that we are not celebrating those A's, we are raising a number of questions. And some of the questions that are raised are very genuine. Mm-hmm. For instance, you have a school where everyone has scored an A in maths, or majority have an A in maths. But then in physics, they can hardly get C+. Mm-hmm. There's a question mark there. Like, there's a positive correlation between the knowledge, the knowledge set and skills that you need for maths, which are relatively close to what you need for physics. Mm-hmm. So those are areas that need to be investigated just to establish what exactly happened, and not to condemn the students for the flaws. For the flaws that are systemic, and endemic in our system. Right. Deal with those flaws and ensure that next time you release the grades, if people have failed, we believe that these kids have actually performed dismally, and if they've passed, we appreciate that this is our effort and we have a system that can generate students who are competitive. There is the issue of saying that we need more graduates from Kenya who have good grades because we are supplying human capital to the entire world. Right. That is only as good as their competence when they go outside the world. Because if they go outside the world and they demonstrate to the world that they have these good degrees, these good grades, but they don't have the competence, then it will interfere with the reputation that we have there. And for the next generation, guys will be like, yeah, they come from Kenya, they have good grades, but they can't do nothing. But I would say that as someone who has taught at the university level for the last 12 years, there is something that is fundamentally, not adding up. The level of understanding certain basic things, specifically English grammar at the university level, is wanting. And I can't blame the students. There's a way in which that transition from primary to high school also caused this. I was speaking to a number of English teachers from high school, and they were saying that these days, I think the numbers are just too big. By the time you give a composition, for you to mark for the entire class or the array of classes that you're teaching, it's the end of the term. So that engagement, you know, with the teachers, the student-teacher ratio, is something that has to be looked into, because if the instructional material is not delivered in a way that gives the student competence, and we live in a country where integrity is at its lowest level, where even parents help their children in KCSE to steal, where the community wants people to pass at all costs. So if the instructional material and the engagement between the students and the teachers is not sufficient to give them confidence, they will seek that confidence elsewhere. And with the technology that we have, I think it's just a question of, does that system ensure that there is integrity in the examination process?
Right.